Hi, I'm Sharon Doherty. I'm the Chief People Officer here at Finastra. Finastra is the third largest fintech in the world. We're owned by a PE firm called Vista. They're the fourth largest software company in the world. They have about 65 software companies all over the world. So in terms of Finastra, Astra, so Financial Star, it's a company that was two organisations that merged about 18 months ago, and hence a new brand was born. But we've got a history that predates that. So we're 10,000 people across 40 countries, and we provide mission-critical software for banks. There are about 15,000 financial institutions across the world, and we provide a service to about 9,000 of them. What a great question. So look, I think every organisation's got to find what will make it a top employer, and I think the great news is analytics, is there in a way that allows you to do that. So you can look at your target market and find millions of pieces of data that says, the people you're trying to attract, what would they find interesting if they were in your organisation? So my advice would be, firstly, go use analytics to figure out what will make you a top employer. If I think about Finastra, we've done that analytics, and so what are we looking at? We're looking at three things. So firstly, it's about the work that people do. So what you'll find is, people, particularly in software companies and technology companies, they follow interesting work. So we believe the future of finance is open, and we're creating this movement of technologists that want to disrupt financial services. So people come to us because they're intrigued, interested in that ambition. So that's number one. Number two is about the working environment. So you've got to create the right vibe inside your organisation, a modern, cool vibe that allows people to feel like they can be themselves. So anything from wear what you want, work hours that work for you. You can come, you can learn, you can work with interesting people. All of that sort of stuff, super, super important. And then I think the third thing that we found is you've got to be a company that's got purpose at its heart. So again, particularly if you're trying to find 10x talent, then they can pretty much go and work wherever they would like. So they'll come to you if they think you're doing something that's not just impacting your business or your customers in a positive way, but also is having an impact on the world. So for us, we're in an industry that's got nearly 2 billion people that are unbanked. So people are really drawn to how do we create a world where everybody has access to financial services. Look, I'm a newbie here, so I've been here for 8 months, and so in the 8 months I have met now probably about 60% of the organisation across the 40 countries that we're in. So I've been busy learning about the business and meeting people, as every good Chief People Officer should. But I think whilst you're trying to figure out the big things that you should be doing to create the right culture, to have the right shape in your organisation, it's also really important that you get going and you create a tone or a brand that is the tone that you want to help lead your organisation through. So for me, when I turned up, interestingly, we perhaps were a bit more like a bank than a fintech. Some of the things that I saw that I could help very quickly with were things like changing the dress code. So be yourself, come in your jeans, your flip-flops if that works for you. And also, inclusion is really, really important for me. So first up, I created 5 streams looking at gender, LGBTQ, looking at special abilities, etc., etc. And we got going with things like our first global LGBTQ webinar and started putting in initiatives in that space. So very early days, so shaping what I want to do for the long term, but also just getting off with some quick wins that start to signal a shift in the culture. So So look, employee experience I think covers a number of areas. So firstly, I think it's the physical working environment. We as a company are less than 2 years old, and by the time we're 3, 70% of our physical buildings will either be new or have been refurbed. And having a really good physical environment for people to work in is very, very important. I think secondly, no longer is it just about the physical building, but it's also about your online experience. And the thing about online is no one function can do it on its own. So what we're looking at here is how do we get finance, HR, property, technology, supply chain to work together to think about end-to-end employee journeys and how we can really almost give our employees a commercial experience inside the workplace. And I think the third area is around culture. Yeah, and so how do you create a culture that is inclusive and one where people really feel listened to? What was very nice for me joining Finastra was that actually I would say they had a world-class regime around listening. So every week, a third of the workforce were being asked what they think about things, and not only were they being asked, but then that was getting right to the CEO, and the CEO would then discuss with senior leaders, what does that mean we need to change to create the right culture. So those, I think, that balance between the physical, the online, but also creating the right culture and how you bring all of those things together to really create the right type of employee experience, I think is really critical now. So great question. So I think it was 1995 that McKinsey said there is a war for talent. And I have to say, since then, I didn't believe them really until probably the last 2 or 3 years. And I think most CEOs, most organisations would say that their biggest challenge right now is about how they find that 10x talent, particularly the digital 10x talent. I think what's interesting for me, not only am I looking for amazing UX, DevOps, data scientists, which I think we're all out there trying to create a working environment that attracts those sorts of people. But I add to that domain expertise as well, yeah, and financial services is quite a technical, complicated industry. So not only do I need 10x functional talent, but I also need amazing talent that understands financial services, and figuring out how we put both of those things together to create the future of finance and to work with our customers in a really value-add way is probably the number one challenge for us here. So the future of work, there's so many books that have been written on that, and my view is that the future of work is now. It just hasn't been industrialized yet. I've been very fortunate in the last 5 years to spend a lot of time in Silicon Valley and looking at what some of the more creative and innovative organizations have been doing to try and figure out what does that mean in work. So I think there's a few things going on. So on the one hand, you're looking at how technology plays out in work, whether that is automation, AI, machine learning, the new skills coming into play, and how our workforce and technology work together to create the best service for customers and the most efficient and effective organisation for shareholders. So I think we're in the middle of trying to figure that out. But of course, human beings are people, and so what you're also having to do is sort of figure out how does purpose and what we stand for as human beings connect in the workplace in a much more significant way than we have seen before. So when I sort of look at the future of work, I think those are two themes that will continue, and we'll all be scratching our heads and trying to figure out, as more technology comes in, and yet people need to have more purpose in their work, how does that combine in a fulfilling and productive workplace?